My dear brothers and sisters, we often reach moments in life where the doors seem closed, the paths seem blocked, and the heart begins to feel heavy with uncertainty. We plan, we try, and sometimes we fail again and again. But it is precisely in these moments that our faith is tested, not broken, because when we see no way forward, Allah is already preparing a way we could never imagine. Today, I want to remind myself first, and then all of you, that trusting Allah is not about seeing the path clearly. It is about believing in the one who controls the path. When you place your trust in Allah sincerely, He opens doors that logic cannot explain. He brings ease from places you never expected. And He proves to you that no situation is hopeless when Allah is in charge. There comes a point in life where a person realizes that effort alone is no longer enough, that intelligence alone cannot solve everything, and that strength alone cannot carry the burden any further. It is at this point that true trust in Allah begins. As long as we believe that our plans, our money, our connections, or our power are what will save us, we have not yet fully relied upon Allah. We may say we trust Him, but deep inside, our hearts are still leaning on something else. True reliance is born when everything else falls away. Many people think trust in Allah means sitting back and doing nothing, but that is not trust, that is negligence. Trust is to do everything within your capacity, to try with sincerity and honesty, and then to accept that the outcome belongs to Allah alone. When you have knocked on every door you know and they all remain closed, that is when Allah shows you that He is not limited by the doors you see. He is the one who creates doors where walls once stood. When a person reaches desperation, the heart softens, pride dissolves, the illusion of control disappears, and in that state, a servant turns to Allah with a sincerity that perhaps never existed before. The du'a changes, the tears become real, the heart speaks without rehearsed words. This is where transformation begins, not because Allah suddenly became capable, but because the servant finally understood who was always in control. Throughout life, Allah places people in situations where logic offers no solution. A diagnosis with no cure, a financial crisis with no visible escape, a relationship broken beyond repair, a future that looks completely uncertain. These moments are not meant to destroy faith, but to redefine it. Allah shows the servant that reliance on Him is not an option reserved for the weak, but a necessity for everyone. When all worldly supports collapse, a person realizes that Allah never collapses. He never abandons. He never forgets. He never miscalculates. What appears to be the end is often the beginning of a deeper relationship with Allah. A relationship built not on comfort, but on certainty, not on ease, but on conviction. Trusting Allah at this stage requires silencing the noise of fear and the opinions of people. It requires believing that even if no one understands your situation, Allah understands it completely. Even if no one sees a solution, Allah has already written it. The servant learns that Allah's help does not always arrive in the way we expect, but it always arrives in the way we need. Sometimes Allah removes what we rely on so that we rely on Him alone. A job is lost so that a better path can open. A door is shut so that a safer road can be taken. A plan fails so that a greater plan can unfold. But while we are inside the test, we cannot see the wisdom. All we see is pain. And yet that pain carries within it a mercy that will later become clear. In moments where nothing seems to work, the believer learns to place their heart at the door of Allah, not once, not twice, but persistently, with patience, with humility, with certainty. They learn that Allah does not disappoint those who truly rely on Him, even if the wait feels long, even if the test feels heavy. True trust is when the heart is calm, even before the solution arrives. When the servant says, "My Lord is enough for me," and truly means it. When anxiety begins to loosen its grip because the heart knows it is held by the most merciful. When hope remains alive, not because circumstances improve, but because faith deepened. This level of trust is not reached overnight. It is built through repeated tests. Repeat. disappointments, repeated moments of surrender. Each time the servant lets go of control, Allah grants clarity. Each time the servant admits weakness, Allah grants strength. Each time the servant places trust in Allah alone, Allah shows that His power was never dependent on circumstances. When all options are exhausted, when the road ends, when the night feels endless, this is not the moment to despair. This is the moment to trust, because Allah specializes in creating a way where none exist, and He does so in ways that leave the servant humbled, grateful, and forever aware that without Allah they are nothing, and with Allah they lack nothing, and Allah's delays are never empty delays. They are not pauses without purpose, nor silence without meaning. When relief does not come immediately, the heart begins to question, the mind begins to wander, and patience feels heavy. But what we often fail to realize is that Allah is working even when we see nothing happening. The delay itself is part of the plan, carefully measured, precisely timed, and filled with wisdom that only becomes clear later. A servant may beg Allah day and night for a solution, and when it does not arrive, they assume they have been forgotten. But Allah never forgets. He delays because He knows what we do not. He sees the full picture while we see only a fragment. What we perceive as waiting is often Allah preparing multiple elements to come together at the right moment. Preparing the situation, preparing the people involved, and preparing the heart of the servant to receive what is coming. Sometimes the delay is for purification. Allah cleanses the heart from arrogance, impatience, and unhealthy attachment to outcomes. He teaches the servant humility, dependence, and sincerity. Had the solution arrived immediately, the servant might have attributed success to their own effort. But through delay, Allah teaches that all goodness comes from Him alone. The servant learns to turn back to Allah repeatedly, not just when desperate, but as a habit of the heart. There are moments when Allah delays because the servant is not yet ready emotionally, spiritually, or even morally. A blessing given too early can become a burden. A door opened prematurely can lead to regret. Allah in His mercy waits until the servant can carry what they are asking for. What feels like denial is often protection. What feels like silence is often guidance. The delay also teaches patience, and patience is not passive, it is active trust. It is continuing to worship, continuing to pray, continuing to hope, even when nothing seems to change. It is choosing not to become bitter, not to complain excessively, not to lose faith. Through patience, Allah elevates the servant, not always by changing their situation, but by strengthening their heart. There are times when Allah delays to redirect. The servant is asking for one thing, but Allah knows that something else is better. The delay allows the servant to slowly detach from what they want and become open to what Allah wants for them. Had the answer come immediately, the servant might have missed a far greater opportunity waiting just ahead. Allah also delays to deepen the relationship between Himself and His servant. When everything is easy, people often forget to call upon Allah sincerely. But when the answer is delayed, du'a becomes frequent, heartfelt, and honest. The servant speaks to Allah about fears, weaknesses, hopes, and dreams. That connection itself becomes a gift greater than what was originally asked for. Many of the strongest believers were shaped during waiting periods, periods where nothing moved, nothing changed, and nothing made sense. Yet those very moments built resilience, clarity, and unwavering faith. The servant learns that Allah's timing is not based on urgency but on wisdom, not based on emotion but on mercy. Delays also expose what is truly in the heart. They reveal whether the servant worships Allah for Allah or only for the outcome. When the blessing is withheld, does the servant remain obedient, grateful, and hopeful, or do they become distant, resentful, and impatient? Through delay, Allah separates sincerity from convenience. Sometimes Allah delays because something unseen must first be removed. A harmful attachment, a toxic influence, a false sense of security. The delay allows Allah to remove obstacles that would have corrupted the blessing had it arrived earlier. What the servant experiences as loss or hardship is often Allah clearing the path. When relief finally comes after a long delay, it carries a sweetness that immediate relief never could. The servant recognizes Allah's hand in every detail. Gratitude becomes deeper. Humility becomes permanent. Faith becomes unshakable. The servant no longer questions whether Allah can help because they have lived through the proof. Even when the delay lasts years, even when the heart grows tired, Allah remains closer than ever. Every tear shed is counted. Every prayer whispered is recorded. Every moment of patience is rewarded. Allah does not rush because perfection is never rushed. What He prepares in delay is often far greater than what the servant initially hoped for. So when the answer feels late, it is not absent. When the door remains closed, it is not forgotten. Allah is preparing something, shaping something, arranging something beyond what the servant can imagine. And when the time is right, the delay will make sense. The pain will have meaning. And the servant will realize that Allah was guiding them all along, even when they thought nothing was happening. Hardship is often misunderstood as a sign that Allah is distant, displeased, or has turned away from His servant. In reality, hardship is sometimes the clearest sign of Allah's closeness. When life becomes heavy and the heart feels strained, it is easy to assume abandonment. But Allah does not abandon His servants. He draws them nearer, sometimes through comfort, and sometimes through challenge. When Allah loves a servant, He refines them. Refinement is rarely comfortable. Just as raw material must pass through pressure and heat to become valuable, the human heart is shaped through trials. Hardship removes the layers of false security that keep a person distant from Allah. It strips away reliance on creation and replaces it with reliance on the Creator. In ease, people often forget how fragile they are. They forget how dependent they are on Allah. Hardship reminds the servant of their reality. It humbles them, grounds them, and brings sincerity back into their worship. A single night of genuine prayer during difficulty can be more powerful than years of heedless comfort. Hardship also realigns priorities. When everything is taken away, what remains becomes clear. Status fades, wealth loses its shine, and approval from people no longer matters as much. The servant begins to seek meaning rather than validation, peace rather than praise. Through hardship, Allah redirects the heart toward what truly matters. There are times when Allah places a servant in hardship, not because they are weak, but because they are strong enough to grow through it. Every test is tailored. Allah does not burden a soul beyond what it can bear. Even when the servant feels overwhelmed, Allah knows their capacity better than they know themselves. Hardship also softens the heart toward others. Pain teaches compassion. Loss teaches empathy. Struggle teaches humility. A person who has suffered becomes more understanding, more patient, more merciful. Through hardship, Allah shapes servants who are a source of comfort to others. When hardship enters a believer's life, it often brings with it moments of deep connection with Allah, long nights of reflection, silent tears, whispered du'a, sincere repentance. These moments may be painful, but they are sacred. They are moments where the servant is closest to Allah, even if they do not realize it at the time. Hardship also cleanses sins. Every difficulty endured with patience removes something from the burden of the heart. What feels like loss in this world becomes gain in the next. The believer learns that not every blessing looks like ease, and not every mercy feels pleasant. Sometimes hardship is a form of protection. Allah prevents something worse by allowing something difficult. He redirects the servant away from harm, even if the redirection is painful. What appears as a setback may actually be a safeguard. Hardship teaches surrender. It teaches the servant to let go of control and place trust in Allah fully. When the servant realizes that they cannot fix everything, they turn to the one who can. That surrender brings a peace that no solution could ever provide. In hardship, Allah listens attentively to His servant. Every word, every tear, every sigh is known. Allah is not distant during difficulty. He is near, watching, guiding, supporting. The servant may feel alone, but they are never abandoned. Over time, hardship strengthens faith. The servant emerges more resilient, more aware, more connected. What once felt unbearable becomes a source of strength. The memory of Allah's support during difficulty becomes a lifelong anchor. Hardship does not last forever. It moves, it shifts, it transforms. But the growth it brings remains. When the trial passes, the servant carries with them a deeper trust, a calmer heart, and a clearer understanding of Allah's wisdom. Those who walk through hardship with faith do not emerge unchanged. They emerge refined. Their relationship with Allah becomes more intimate, more sincere, more unshakable. What once felt like darkness becomes proof of light, and what once felt like distance becomes evidence of closeness. Relief does not always arrive through the routes the mind expects or the plans the heart designs. Many people imagine that when Allah answers, it will come in a familiar form through predictable means and according to personal timelines. But Allah is not restricted by expectation, habit, or probability. When a servant places true trust in Allah, relief can emerge from directions that were never considered, through means that were never planned, and in moments that were never anticipated. Often a person limits hope to what they can see. They measure possibility by experience and outcomes by logic. Yet Allah operates beyond the visible. He moves hearts, shifts circumstances, and rearranges realities without announcement. What seems impossible one day can become effortless the next, not because circumstances suddenly became favorable, but because Allah willed it. Relief may come through a person who unexpectedly shows kindness, speaks at the right moment, or opens a door without realizing its significance. It may come through a loss that later reveals itself as a release. It may come through a delay that redirects a life entirely. Allah's help does not always arrive as addition. Sometimes it arrives as removal. Something leaves so that peace can enter. Something ends so that clarity can begin. Many servants wait for relief to come in the form of what they asked for. But Allah may respond by giving something better. The believer may ask for ease and Allah gives strength. They may ask for certainty and Allah gives patience. They may ask for change in circumstances and Allah changes their heart. In that transformation, the weight of the problem becomes lighter, even if the problem itself remains. Unexpected relief also teaches the servant humility. When the solutio arrives from a place they never imagined, they realize that Allah alone orchestrated it. Pride dissolves, gratitude deepens, faith becomes rooted not in outcomes, but in certainty of Allah's power. The servant no longer asks how relief will come, because experience has taught them that Allah's methods surpass understanding. At times, relief comes quietly, not as a dramatic shift, but as gradual ease. Anxiety softens, fear loosens its grip, sleep returns, the heart becomes calm. These subtle changes are often overlooked, yet they are among the greatest forms of relief. Allah heals hearts in ways that cannot be measured or explained. There are moments when Allah sends relief through hardship itself. The trial becomes the teacher, the pain becomes the guide. The struggle reveals strength the servant never knew they possessed. What once felt like a burden becomes a source of wisdom. Through enduring difficulty, the servant learns reliance, discipline, and trust, which later open doors that comfort never could have opened. Relief may also come after the servant lets go of desperation. When the heart stops chasing outcomes and begins trusting Allah fully, doors begin to open. Not because the servants stopped caring, but because they surrendered control. In that surrender, peace enters, and with peace comes clarity. Allah may send relief through opportunities disguised as challenges. A job rejection that leads to a better path. A relationship ending that preserves dignity and faith. A failure that redirects effort towards something more meaningful. At the moment, these feel like losses, but with time, they reveal themselves as protection. Unexpected relief strengthens belief in divine wisdom. It teaches that Allah's knowledge is complete and human knowledge is limited. The servant learns that what they desire is not always what they need, and what they fear is not always harmful. Allah sees outcomes the servant cannot see and prepares futures the servant could not imagine. Sometimes relief comes when hope feels weakest, when the servant has exhausted every option and lowered every expectation. In those moments, Allah shows that hope should never be placed in circumstances but in Him alone. He revives hope not by changing the world immediately, but by reminding the heart that it was never alone. Relief can also arrive through spiritual awakening, a renewed connection with Allah, a deeper understanding of purpose, a clarity that reshapes priorities. When the heart finds its anchor in Allah, many worldly struggles lose their power. The servant realizes that true relief is not always the removal of hardship, but the presence of Allah within it. Every unexpected relief carries a lesson, a reminder that Allah's help is near, that His timing is perfect, that His mercy is vast. The servant who experiences this begins to trust more deeply, fear less intensely, and hope more consistently. When relief comes from where none was expected, it leaves a permanent mark on the heart. The servant never forgets that moment. It becomes a reference point in future trials, a memory that whispers reassurance during difficulty, a reminder that Allah creates ways beyond sight, beyond reason, beyond limitation. This understanding transforms the believer's outlook on life. Problems are no longer signs of despair, but invitations to trust. Delays are no longer reasons for doubt, but opportunities for growth. The servant moves forward with calm confidence, knowing that even if no path is visible, Allah is fully capable of creating one at any moment, through any means, in any form He wills.